lovely people, my name is Emma and today I'm going to be talking to you about what I intend to read during April. So the buzzword readathon's prompt for April is the word space, and I intend to read The Space Between Worlds by Miciah Johnson. This is a sci-fi debut and it's about a multiverse world where you can travel to different versions of the universe only if the counterpart to you in that multiverse has died. And our main character is some kind of spy or assassin or secret agent who is able to travel between a lot of worlds because a lot of her counterparts have already died. But I think then somebody is starting to try and kill them off, including potentially her. So it looks quite fun, and it's been on my want to reads for a really long time, so I think it'll be really entertaining to try and get to it. Other than that, my plan for April is to read books that start with the word the. I realise this is something which is on my bookshelf is like probably a third to half of the books that I own start with the word the, so I thought it'd be a really fun way of kind of narrowing down stuff on my shelves and helping me kind of pick, because I do prefer my reading when there is a vague theme helping me to guide it, because otherwise I kind of get a bit overwhelmed by the size of my TBR and don't really know where to start. So everything has the word the starting it for this month, and we're going to jump in with the rest of them. I'm going to read The Relentless Moon, which is book 3 of the Lady Astronaut series by someone. Apologies, I've done that thing where I forget to look up a bunch of authors' names. So this is a sci-fi, but more of a cozy sci-fi series that I'm reading, which is set in the kind of 50s/60s and is looking at the space race. And but the space race is due to the fact that an asteroid has hit Earth and is going to cause a mass extinction event if we don't basically find a way of getting the heck off of our planet. Book 3, obviously quite a lot has happened. I don't want to go into too much detail about book 1 and about it because you need to read book 1 and book 2. But book 1 focuses on the idea of a lady astronaut and kind of confronting a lot of the kind of gender norms of the time and sexism, with also this very heavy overlay of like space travel on top of it. And what I really enjoy about the book series is that it's fairly good at kind of including a lot of technical detail. So it's a good fun read, and I'm really interested in reading book 3. I think book 4 is the finish of the series, but I don't know if it's even published yet. So this will be me trying to catch up a little bit more. Off of some of the like yearly TBRs that I've been planning, I have The Last by Hanna Jameson, I think, or Johnson, not too sure. This is a kind of closed circle mystery plus zombie apocalypse book, I believe. It's about a collection of people who find refuge in a big old manor house from a zombie apocalypse or some kind of dystopian post-apocalyptic future, but then a murder occurs and it's about them trying to like find out who within their group has done it. So I think it's gonna be a lovely kind of blend of like Poirot meets like 28 Days Later, and I've heard really good things about it. It's a 5-star prediction for me, so I'm really excited about this one. Another 5-star prediction is the Alchemaster's Apprentice by Moers. This is book 4 of his Zamonia series, which is like absurdist fantasy. They're standalone books, so you can jump in wherever. I don't actually know anything about the details of this particular one, but I've really loved all of the kind of 3 books I've read of his in the past. 4 books actually I think I've read, because there is a completely different standalone that I also really enjoyed. His first book, The 13.5 Lives of Captain Blueberry novel, is like an all-time favourite book of mine from my childhood, and he just has so much fun with these big, expansive Terry Pratchett-esque style worlds where things are quirky and zany and crazy, but I really like the way that he pulls all his plots together. I think that they're fantastic, and I'm hoping that there will be a few reoccurring characters or reoccurring areas from his other books to kind of pull into this one. So I think this is going to be absolutely fantastic, and it's getting a little shorter. This is more manageable from him in comparison to some of his other titles. I'm very intrigued. One that I mentioned in my Women in History TBR that got so much love in the comments that I knew I just had to get it to it in April, you've convinced me, is The Radium Girls. I think this might be by Kate Moore. The Radium Girls is a non-fiction that looks at a collection of women workers who were in charge of painting radium onto clock faces to make the numbers glow, and this was before that we knew that radium was like radioactive and highly poisonous, and they were actually taught to put the paintbrushes in their mouths to get a finer point, and due to this they ended up with some really horrific work-based illnesses and injuries, all sorts of nasty like cancers of the throat. And this book is about their struggle to try and get the kind of responsibility of the corporations recognised and for them to get some kind of compensation, and a look at kind of workers' rights in general. I've heard from people on the internet that it's harrowing and heartbreaking and will make me really angry, but it's a really important story, and as you know on this channel now. I absolutely adore history, and literally the comment section of that last video was so flooded with so much love for this book that I just had to get to it. You've all convinced me, so much hype around this, I'm here for it, let's do this. I've also been kind of looking at my bookshelves and pulling out a few books that I actually bought before my time on BookTube, which means that they've really been on my shelves for a while. So the next few you may never have seen me talk about before, because basically I never really officially put them on my TBR on this channel, but I really want to try and prioritize getting to them. One of these is The City in the City by China Mieville. This is a book that technically I actually got like 2/3 of the way through, and then I just stopped and put it down for no reason. So I really need to pick it back up and actually finish it. I even marked it as read on my Goodreads for quite a while, but that's an outright lie. I definitely need to actually finish it. Apologies, my bunny's just decided now is the perfect time to disappear into a paper bag of hay. So there's going to be a bit of noise in the background. This is about two cities that are overlapped on top of each other, and when you're in one city you have to pretend that you can't see the others, and then there's some kind of murder mystery I think on top. It sounds completely wacky and wild. I really like China Mieville. I've read Unlundone, which was also fantastic, so I definitely need to finish this one off. I'm going to be going all the way back to the beginning though, because it's been absolute years and I really can't remember anything that happened, but I'm hoping with now a bit more of my like background in sci-fi reading kind of reinvigorated that love, I'll be able to appreciate the writing that little bit more. One that I picked up in a library sale years ago is The Vagrants by Yiyun Li. This is a debut novel from them, and it is about an uprising in China, I believe, and it is about a woman who is executed for her loss of faith in communism, and then there's kind of an uprising around it, and it's sort of the 6 weeks of this particular revolution and the various people involved in it. I think this might be quite similar to Han Kang's Human Acts, which is one of my favourite books ever, so I'm really intrigued by this one, and apparently it's based on true events and a true story, and it is devastatingly illuminates the realities of oppression and pain. So it's going to be a very intense read, but I've heard only good things. The little that I've heard people talk about it, it's won a bunch of prizes, but I think it's just been published for like too long for BookTube to have really hyped it at all. So I think it's time that I read it and let you know what I think about it. And then the other one that's been on my TBR for ages, one that again I've started and put down many years ago, is The Joy of Tax by Richard Murray. This is how a fair tax system can create a better society. And I know what you're thinking, Emma, I know you like non-fiction, but really, a book about tax? How boring could that be? But I actually really enjoyed the bits of it that I read several years ago, and I put it down because life got really hectic and I didn't have the mental space to fully appreciate what it was on about, and then I never picked it back up. So I think it's time for me to dive back in and actually learn about this, because tax is something that is unavoidable. It is how pretty much all of our society functions. It is how we pay for things like the NHS. It is so crucial, and yet it's so often misunderstood. And honestly, I don't really know how tax works, how big global economies work, and I really just want to become a bit more like financially literate. And off the back of reading A Brief History of Mathematical Thought a couple of months back and really enjoying that, I felt kind of brave enough almost to venture into this like really hardcore economicsy mathsy book. So I will let you know what I think to it, but I've heard again good things. It was like a Waterstones pick when I actually first bought it, so I think it's time that I finally confront this book and actually read it off my TBR, because it is hella intimidating right now. Okay, just a few other titles that I'm kind of excited to get to. One of them is The Dinosaur Chronicles by David Hone. I love dinosaurs, we all know this, so this is the next book in my dino reading. This is specifically looking at the Tyrannosaur and all the various kind of iterations and species of the Tyrannosaur, and why do we love the Tyrannosaur so much. Now, full confession, I actually think the Tyrannosaurus Rex is a bit overhyped. I'm not that bothered by them, but they are iconic, and I figure if any book can convince me, this is going to be the book for it. So this is just the next one in my natural history reading that I'm picking up. We are definitely getting a little bit more specialist and niche in some of my reading, but I wanted to read this one so that I could then read Tyrannosaurus Sue that I have upstairs. You alright, bunny? Okay, we're good. We're good. I have upstairs, and that's about a particular dinosaur, like Tyrannosaur fossil that was found. So I wanted to read this for the background and then read that particular story. So that's the plan. An audiobook that I'm planning on picking up is The Age of Innocence by Edith Wharton. This is a classic, I think, written around the kind of turn of the century, early 1900s, and it's really a scathing look at high-class society and sort of elitism and snobbery and what was considered socially acceptable at the time. This is something that Edith Wharton does really well. I read her book The House of Mirth a couple of years ago, and it's one of my favourite classics ever. It's such a fantastic look at the role of women within high society and the difficulty of kind of making a match to survive, and how to survive when you can't actually like meaningfully earn a living. And so this book is about a kind of very uptight, straight-laced gentleman who comes from a very high-class family, and then this woman who bowls into his life who is a little bit more rough and ready around the edges, and kind of the way that she shakes up his life, I believe. So I'm intrigued to see what else Edith Wharton can do. Another classic, but this time from translated fiction, that's been on my shelf for a little while is The Sailor Who Fell from Grace of the Sea by, who is it? It just says Mishima? Sorry, I just slurred that completely. Do we not have a first name? Another name? Apparently not. Okay, interesting. I actually have a different version of this book upstairs that I've had on my shelf for a few years, but it has the worst font for the title I've ever seen. And these are the Penguin vintage Japanese classics, and I've been collecting a few of them. I've got a couple more upstairs as well, which I'll show you in my next haul at some point. And I figured, given I finally bought myself a pretty copy and now actually own 2 versions of this book, I should probably read it. It's quite short, and apparently it's about a group of 13-year-old boys who have quite strange ideas about what it should mean to be like a man and an adult in the world, and they reject like soft sentimentality. And then one of their mothers starts dating this new guy who they to begin with idolize, and then kind of their opinions shift. I'm very interested in this as kind of a concept. I think the cover is stunning. I'm so pleased I bought this much prettier version. It shouldn't matter, but it does so much. For me to read a classic, it has to look nice. I'm sorry, that's just how I am as a reader, and now I've accepted this, I'm gonna get through way more books. But yeah, so I'm really excited about this one. Another one that I have on audiobook is The Food Explorer by, I think, David Stone. I could be wrong about that. This is a history book that is a particular explorer who travelled the world and brought back a lot of different food. That's all I know. Maybe should have looked at the synopsis a little bit more. I'll let you know after I read it what I think to it, but I know it's just been on my Kindle and on my audiobook, like my Audible account, for a really long time, and I'm trying to get to my back catalogue a little bit more, so that's the plan for that one. And I believe that is it for new books. Now, I'm fully expecting a couple of books from like March to drift over. At time of filming, it's like the 19th or the 20th, so I still have a good like week and a half to get through some titles, so I don't know which ones I'll be continuing over. Also, I fully expect me to start a few of these a little bit earlier, but my plan is any of the books that I pick up, even for mood reading, I fully intend for them to start with the word the, because I have like 40 other books that would fit into that category as well. So let me know what you think to all the books on this list. Where should I start? Have you read any of these? I know everyone loves the Radium Girls, but have you read any other ones of these? Do let me know all your thoughts, and let me know what you think to this kind of random picking of a particular theme or feature of a book, just to kind of help narrow down my TBRs. Do you do anything like this when you're looking at your TBR shelf and trying to plan your monthly reading? And the final thing I wanted to do is, in my last video, which was my vlog, I did mention at the end I was going to show you the 2 embroidery projects that I had left like half finished. So if you don't care about stitching, goodbye now and have a wonderful reading week. But if you do, I've actually finished them, so I want to show you them on camera. So the first one, I cut out the square. This is the Pantone challenge that I was doing with the card. I think it looks really effective now that it's all filled in. I learned some really important lessons about what to do when actually stitching on card, but I deeply enjoy it, and I think my next one's going to be like a strawberry motif that my mum suggested, so I'm psyched to jump in with that one. And then super cute, I finished my little koi carp. I wonder if it can focus. There we go. Get my face out of the way. I'm not too sure the fins worked quite as well as I wanted them to, but I really like it. I think it's really sweet, and this was my first attempt at using watercolour on white fabric. So all of the watercolour background is one that I painted myself, and then using it as a background for the embroidery that I was doing. So now I've kind of seen how that works, I'm going to attempt to do some other stuff with it that maybe is a little bit more like detail orientated, painting an actual picture on white rather than just doing a wash of colour in general. So that's it from me. Please do let me know all your thoughts in the comments down below. Which one of the 2 embroidery designs do you like more? Have a wonderful reading week, and I will chat to you soon. Bye!